When you're looking to hire someone or engage in a new relationship or friendship, you probably want someone who's going to be honest. When we think of honesty, we might also think of integrity, someone who is true to their word, or they say what they mean what they say, they follow through with the things that they say. And all of those are true things about honesty and about someone's character and how they present themselves, how they act in situations, which are all very important for building trust and for establishing what type of relationship you actually have with a person. If someone's not trustworthy, the dynamics of what is happening between two people are very different than a relationship with someone whom you can trust. Today, I want to talk about emotional honesty and how that is a vital aspect of building trust and becoming a trustworthy person. Have you ever been in a situation where you were in conflict with someone else and the other person decided to say something like, "Well, I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you the honest truth." And it didn't feel so good. In fact, it felt really discounting, dismissive, and devaluing. Just because someone says they're being honest, it doesn't mean that they're providing emotional honesty or the type of honesty that is healthy and helpful, especially in relationship. So in the scenario that I just provided, two people are at odds at a conflict and someone rudely says, "Well, I'm just being honest," because what they've said before that is something that is rude or unkind or pointing out a fault in the other person or putting the focus of blame and responsibility on the other person. So in this case, the "I'm just being honest" is actually incredibly dishonest. If the person who was frustrated or irritated was emotionally honest, what they would be doing is reflecting on their frustration, their irritation, their anxiousness, their fears, their confusion, their doubt, whatever emotions are getting stirred up inside of them. Emotional honesty means that we are honest with ourselves, with what is happening inside of us, with our emotions, and with our internal experiences. When we're honest with ourselves, then we can be honest with other people in appropriate ways. Without having the information for ourselves, we're going to hide and cover up even more so than we would if we had the information. Once we know and we can acknowledge that resides in me, this fear, that anxiousness, that disruption of some kind is inside me. Emotional honesty acknowledges that it is within my realm of self-stewardship. Now that I know that, I decide, what do I need to do with that? And emotional honesty with integrity would also take ownership to say, because I recognize this is within me, it's also my responsibility to steward that, to attend to what is needed. This is part of what I talk about in something called the growth path. We start with an awareness, then we acknowledge and deepen that awareness by acknowledging, yes, this is true. I am starting to move into personal ownership to say this is happening here without judgment or condemnation. I'm just saying it is true. It is happening. It is reality. And then we can learn how to attend to what is happening so that we can make decisions that align with our values and allow for open communication, connection with other people. If we are not emotionally honest with ourselves, we are also disconnected from the reality of ourselves, the reality of our own experiences. That disconnection furthers disconnection from other people. This may play out by pulling away because we're not honestly connecting to our own fears, and we start to assume that it's everyone else's responsibility, so I pull away from people, or I come up against them, either one. when we are disconnected to our real experience, we aren't going to show up as our real selves with other people. And we often miss out on showing up as our real selves with God as well. The very God who knows us completely, who sees us, who is with us in all the imperfections, in the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. He wants to be with us. He is for us. But just like in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve hid in shame, we will hide and we will protect ourselves in an effort to not be seen. And it becomes even more pervasive when we remain disconnected and discounting of our own experiences, which is a place of emotional dishonesty. We may start to say that our fear is someone else's fear. Our anger is someone else's fault. We blame someone else for what we're experiencing. Even if that person had an impact on our experience, we are responsible for what is happening inside of us. And when there's not emotional honesty, we don't even know what it is, let alone how to deal with it. With the tool Unleash Heart and Soul Care Sheets, you are practicing a regular engagement with emotional honesty. Because first you're identifying information about something that's happened, and it may be facts and observable things outside of you. It may be patterns that you notice about you. When such and such happens, I do such and such, or I start to react in strong ways. And then we dive into the actual thoughts, the actual emotions and feelings, experiences that we have. I offer 2 pages of feeling words vocabulary to help people describe what is going on inside of them. And that is connecting to the reality of their experience, the good, the bad, the messy, the different emotions that are all present at the same time. Then we bring that before God and simply ask God to speak. Ask the Spirit to reveal what He wants us to know. Not with an agenda to say, oh, wow, I need this fixed. Do this for me, God. But recognizing, wow, I'm noticing this is happening with me. I'm noticing that I'm having these emotions and these thoughts and that I'm stirred up in a certain way. And then I bring it before God and ask Him to touch my heart, whether it's courage to change direction, comfort to calm my spirit, calm the anxiety inside of me so that I can live from a calmer, more confident place. Emotional honesty is actually a way of being incredibly brave. It's vulnerability that fosters internal courage. It feels so scary initially, and it is terrifying sometimes to be truly honest, especially if you've been not fully honest with yourself or with other people about your own emotional experiences for a long period of time. And this may have started early in childhood when people discounted your emotions over and over again. You don't have anything to cry about. Don't you cry. We don't cry around here. Or you can't get angry because God doesn't tolerate us if we get angry. All kinds of messages about emotions will affect how we engage with our own emotional experiences and our internal realities. Even so, it is so vital and important for personal health and growth that we are connected to what's going on, that we acknowledge the truth of those experiences, and that we bring that honesty first before God. He knows it all already. He can handle it all. If you have a fear that is similar to what I had, for example, which was I can't get angry with God. I was terrified that I would be such a bad person if I was honest enough to express that I was angry with God, particularly after being on the ranch, thinking that if I did this out of a desire to serve and honor God, it was a good thing. And I got all this pain and I felt stuck and I felt abandoned. I didn't feel like I could say that to God because that was dishonoring. But it was actually dishonoring to me and to God to not be honest. When I was able to get honest with my own anger and trust that God is a big enough God to handle it, it was incredibly freeing. I was able to experience that I was going to be okay. And not only that, that God still loved me and accepted me and that he comforted me, knowing what I was going through and knowing the turmoil of the different thoughts and feelings inside of me. That kind of emotional honesty helps us to be vulnerable. And when we have that information and we're able to live from a calmer sense of self, we are also able to make wiser decisions in how much we relate to other people. We don't need to be telling everybody every little thing that we feel. That is not the point of emotional honesty either. If someone does something and we feel pain as a result, maybe what they did was actually damaging, and maybe it was something that they did that triggered up old wounds. Either way, if we are feeling the pain, if we respond in such a way that our words are maybe inclusive of some language that says what we're feeling, but the onus of the responsibility for that feeling is on the other person, then we're not really being emotionally honest. Emotional honesty would step back and take a minute to say, I am feeling this. What do I need to do with what I'm feeling and experiencing? Maybe I need to take a break. Maybe I need to pause because right now I'm not able to say things that are very kind. I operate under a principle that is really important to me, that we honor ourselves as well as honoring other people. And this is a verse that stands out for this concept for me. And it is also what came up when I was researching verses on emotional honesty. And it comes from Romans 12, verse 3. The NIV says, be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. In the NLT, it says, because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. Honest in your evaluation. Another biblical translation says to be sober-minded. It's clear thinking and it is honest thinking about who we are. And God sees us as each individually unique and each valuable. We are created and loved by the God who designed us. To think of ourselves with emotional honesty means that we don't belittle ourselves and make ourselves to be less than we are, and we don't make ourselves be more than we are. With that in mind, when we are engaging with someone else, our emotional honesty should drive us to be a person of integrity, someone who is honest about what's going on for them and takes care of that, who manages that, even if they need to communicate to another person that they were impacted because of what another person did. The focus is, I notice this is happening with me, I'm honest about it, and then it's a mutual engagement. This is happening, what you did sparked a lot inside of me. Can we talk about it? And that gives an opportunity for two people to be part of an equation. That also is going to build trust, is going to foster connection, and it's going to foster safety and security in a relationship between two people. If two people are working on their own emotional honesty and providing space for the other person to share vulnerably, that is going to build more and more connection. Going back to what I said about just not saying everything that we're feeling to everybody, it's not always safe or good to share all the things that are going on inside of us. That's not wise either. However, we can still be honest with what's going on inside of us and then decide what to do with that. Maybe we find the people who are close to us, who are safe enough for us to share so that we can process, we can work through difficult thoughts and feelings. In the beginning of this, I mentioned when people say, well, I'm just being honest. That oftentimes is used in such a way to not be honest. It is often used in a condescending way or a critical way of the other person, I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you like it is. It doesn't account for the other person's experience, and that doesn't build trust in the relationship. It's either dominating over, or it is just deciding that my opinion is more important than yours. It doesn't allow for there to be a two-way relationship. I'm just being honest. I'm just telling you like it is. You just have to accept it, whether you like it or not. That's not healthy, life-giving, or trust building. I want to provide a couple other verses that go along with this whole concept of emotional honesty. We see emotional honesty throughout the Psalms so many times. David pouring out his heart to God. And you see in the Psalms, not even just David, but the other psalmists, there's this mix of different emotions that are expressed, that are experienced and expressed. Anger, sadness, frustration, confusion, fear, anguish, all these honest reflections of emotion brought before God. And so many times you see at the end of a psalm, so Psalm 42 is one that really stands out for me. And you hear David is pouring out his heart. And then at the end, he makes a choice. And yet I choose to put my hope in you. Maybe I don't feel like you're for sure going to be there. I've felt lost. I feel like you've abandoned me, God. But something inside of me remembers that you're a good God, that you are a trustworthy God, that you never change. Those are the things that help me. And so I'm going to choose to put my trust in you, to put my hope in that you're there, that you care, that there are things that I don't see that you do, that you have a better understanding and a better way to get through things than I could figure out for myself. That gives me so much hope. And it's maybe one of the reasons at the end of Unleashed Sheets, the last step is choice. Even if the only choice you can do is to say, I don't understand, but I am choosing to take one step forward today in trust that you're still good, God, that you're still there somewhere. I am choosing to receive what I notice about you. Maybe it's in nature, in the handiwork of how you've created the world. Maybe it's in the goodness that I've seen throughout Scripture or in someone else's life. But I'm going to choose to reflect on that. That's a choice that we can make. Honesty still allows space for us to make a personal choice what we want to do with that. In fact, it provides a more healthy way to get to the choices that we want to make and could look back on and say, yes, that was a choice that I made that aligned with my values and the best I knew at the time. We also see Jesus, who wept, who was sorrowful to the point of death. He felt real emotions. He was empathic for his friends, and he felt anger. He felt sadness. Emotional honesty. Proverbs 11:3, NIV says, honesty guides good people, dishonesty destroys treacherous people. CSB version of the same verse says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the perversity of the treacherous destroys them. So this emotional honesty, I would also tie to a concept of integrity. When we have integrity, it's solid. It is true to its core. There aren't holes that weaken the structure of who we are. So like I think of the structural integrity of metal, for example. It isn't full of impurities and things that break it down. It hasn't been compromised by something else, but something that has integrity, is solid. It is true to who it is, true to the nature of what it is. And when we are emotionally honest, we are true to our experiences and also remembering the truth of who we are in our experiences. God still sees us the way he sees us. That doesn't change just because we have different emotional experiences. So that honesty and integrity is us being real and bringing that realness before a real God. 1 John 3:18 says, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. Proverbs 12:22, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. I hope that these verses are encouraging if you are recognizing that there is an area of your life where you haven't been really emotionally honest with yourself, and maybe that dishonesty has caused you to hide your true self with other people and even with God. If that's been you and it feels really, really scary to engage honestly and vulnerably, know that God loves the honesty and he will embrace you in the honesty. It feels terrifying to be open and vulnerable when you haven't been. Even for any of us, for all of us, it feels scary to be fully vulnerable. And we can choose to test that vulnerability with God and see how God handles that with us. One more verse, Proverbs 10:9. The man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out. The truth is, God does know. He knows if we're being deceitful by not being fully honest with ourselves and with other people. The benefit of emotional honesty is that we get to experience calmness in the core of our being. We can live from the truth of who we really are, and we can have new experiences that help us know we can survive if we are rejected. We can also have new experiences of being accepted in our imperfections. When we're afraid to be honest about our feelings and our thoughts and the things that we think just wouldn't be good to admit out loud, that hiding that we do to cover it up and to try to get a different narrative puts us into a place of darkness. When I talk about the stuff with Daystar in the reflection series that I did, there is so much cover up, so much dancing around and trying to provide a different narrative rather than any emotional honesty from the leadership. When they're getting frustrated, the frustration is focused on someone else. What we're not hearing is emotional honesty from the leadership. But for us, when we can be emotionally honest, that calmness helps us feel less anxiety and experience overall less anxiety. It may feel scary at first, but the lasting effect of engaging in that kind of a path is being able to experience God's love, being perfected in God's love, and the benefit of all the times that God says, do not fear, which are followed by, for I am with you. We are invited into a place where we aren't going to experience all that fear as we experience more and more of God with us. Another benefit of emotional honesty is strengthening relationships with other people. Because when we're emotionally honest, we are becoming a trustworthy person. We're going to be honest in how we present ourselves to another person, and that person can decide what they're going to do with that. And that gives them the opportunity to trust that we are who we say we are. We are going to do what we say we're going to do, and we're not going to turn it around on them. That builds relational connection and increases safety and security for both people. When we are emotionally honest, we can experience God with us in places that feel very scary, that have felt very isolating and lonely if we're used to covering it up. So if any of this resonates with you today, I hope and pray that first you take a breath and that you have a moment just right now through the Spirit that you experience God's tenderness and care and his courage with you to be emotionally honest and to test it out with him and just see what he's going to do, because he truly, truly does love you.